on this computer. Yeah. Awesome. So we're recording. Yay. All right. So we have me, Coach Dana, and we have Coach Sara here, and we're going to be talking a little bit about orthorexia today. It is a more newly diagnosed form of eating disorder. And it is a lot different from your typical eating disorders, right? Most people know about bulimia and anorexia, and how those will affect your body. And orthorexia is more how it affects your brain, which I think is really interesting. But I think a lot more people are suffering from it than even are aware are suffering from it. So that's kind of one of the things that I want to delve into in this conversation, is just to kind of bring some of that information to light so that it can help people who are suffering and don't even really know that they're suffering. Coach Sara, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so me personally, I've experienced both anorexia and bulimia and exercise addiction kind of all intertwined into one. When I was going through high school, right into the beginning of college, that's where all of my issues started happening. So the other aspect where people always see, they think of an anorexic person as somebody who just doesn't eat. There's typical very skinny type of, body shape, where if you really think about what binge eating disorder is, or even over exercising, people have all different shapes and sizes, right? Same thing with having orthorexia, because you don't see it to you or I, or even if you're looking at something from the outside, you see more of a person that is just eating healthy, quote unquote. You know what I mean? So you don't really notice it until you start digging deeper with these people in normal situations. They won't go out to eat, or they won't enjoy other foods if they're not quote unquote healthy or clean. And that's when you start seeing the difference between it's just a diet, between it's actually something that's feared, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of where eventually if someone is anorexic, you will notice, right? And eventually if someone is bulimic, you will notice, or something will become more and more apparent. Either you'll see stomach acid burns on their fingers, or you'll notice kind of those signs. But someone who's suffering from orthorexia, who literally just has a fear of eating something that's not what they deem healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot more, it is a lot more difficult to see. And you won't really pick up on clues. People would have noticed it from me, because I'd get that that cringe, right? When somebody something about going out to eat, or and not even at any restaurant. It would mostly be more fast food, or Coca-Cola, anything that was just really chemically processed and things like that. I'd kind of get this twitch.
Right. Yeah.
And I sort of cringe backwards and stuff like that. And so it's, if you didn't know me very well, and especially if you didn't know how I used to eat, it would be a lot harder to pick up on. But I mean, there was a very strong period of time where, and it's still something that I struggle with on a day-to-day basis, because I'm so paranoid about what my kids eat.
Right.
More so about me, because it's kind of oh, you're 39, if something bad's going to happen to you from the food, it's kind of too late, right? But then I'm responsible for keeping them healthy, and I'm responsible for making sure that they have what they need. And so I think it was more so for them and not for me that my orthorexia kind of started to become more heightened. But your situation with that's going to be a little bit different, because you don't have kids yet. So when did you start noticing the change in yourself, that it was no longer about the quantity of food that was going into your body, but the quality of that food. And that bigger picture.
Yeah. So when I had anorexia, because I did have that for about 3 years, like I don't even have pictures to even show you how small like I actually was, because I think I refused to take pictures of myself because I was just that tiny. And it was like almost to the point of needing an intervention, which my husband and my best friend in college were the two people that stepped in. And from there, I learned about nutrition, but then it started spiraling into how healthy can I eat? You know, so you took one obsession and placed it into another obsession. Now, like I will say this like straight up, I don't think I've been out to eat in like years. Like, and actually ate at a restaurant, free willingly, like ate a meal that I'm just like, yeah, let's just have a burger and fries. Like, I still struggle with that. That's so like hard, like deep stuff that I just refuse to go out to eat. And if I do go out to eat, I just don't order anything. That's still like how much present it is in my life. And it's not so much that I'm afraid of food. It's just, I like that control factor of what I'm eating type of thing. And I feel like people who know me just now know not to even ask me. Like when like cakes and cookies come around, they're like, yes, Sarah's not going to eat it. You know, they just don't even ask. They're just like, they just bypass. But for me, like I eat a very healthy diet. And like just recently I've been trying to put in, I wouldn't say like bad food, but like food that's not typical, right? Like this morning I had waffles. Like to normal people, waffles are fine. But to me, it was a big deal. Like, I was like, I'm hungry for a waffle. And Eric's like, just eat it. Like, it's not a big deal. But I think when you suffer with issues like this, it's heightened, right? So, like, a simple waffle can send you down a spiral for the entire day. And you're like, oh, my gosh, I had a waffle. And now you feel like you're out of control for the rest of the day. But that's just something I've been working on myself. It's hard.
It absolutely is hard, to kind of like, I'll actually just give you a recent example. So we were at the store yesterday picking out all of the ingredients for my 8-year-old's birthday cake, because I was going to make her birthday cake. And so we were getting gluten-free organic cake mix, and we were trying to figure out, she wanted red velvet cake. And unfortunately, they don't have organic one or gluten-free and organic, because they have to be free, but you know, whatever, cake mix. And so then I started looking up online. I was like, well, I could just make it from scratch. I was talking about roasting beets and putting the beet juice in. Like, okay, Mom, I don't have time for all this. And she goes, well, Mom, I mean, I could just do a different kind of cake. That's okay. And so we, went back and forth, and finally she decided on strawberry cake. And I was like, okay, well, great. We can get this, we can get the gluten-free vanilla gluten-free vanilla cake mix that we have tried before, and it's really actually good. And I can just use some fresh strawberries to dye it and make it taste like strawberries, etc. And she found these cool, like, decorative edible pearl things that you can put on top of the cake.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, sure. And I made some kind of comment, and I turned around and I looked at what was in it, and I was like, oh, and I just inadvertently even made the comment, because I really try not to pass these things on to my kids as well, and just kind of keep my thoughts to myself sometimes. And every once in a while, it just kind of blurts out, and you can't really do anything about it. And I was like, oh, great, it's got soy in it. Yay. And she I mean, I just saw her entire face drop. It's okay, Mom. I'll put them back.
Aw.
And I was like, it's okay. Like, it's a treat. It's your birthday. It doesn't matter. We're just going to put them on there. Everything's going to be fine. If this is what you want, it's okay. But it just, it's kind of one of those things. And she's the sweet one that's always going to be, she's the giver. She's the carer, the one that wants to take care of. And so she's always going to kind of take one for the team like that. And so it was really important for me to allow her to see me eat a couple of them on the cake, to know that, like, yes, it's okay. It's not going to kill me or anything like that. We just don't do it all of that often. And so that was kind of one of those things where I kind of liken it to me as a kid. We flew a lot as a kid. My dad worked for Delta, and my family was from up north, so we were always traveling up north on the summers. And I never knew until I was an adult that my mother was scared to death of flying. Absolutely petrified to fly. And I never knew because she made it very, very, very much a point to not allow us to see those things.
Right.
She didn't want that to kind of transfer over to us. And I grew up loving flying. Like, I still love to fly, which is awesome. So, like, that's kind of the thing too, is even when we recognize that we do have those tendencies and we suffer from those kinds of things, and I don't like to use the word stifle and not talk about it, because I don't think that's the answer either, right? Because that's just going to send you into a different spiral.
Right.
Making sure that we're not perpetuating those fears on other people as well, right? And that we're allowing them, especially the little people in our lives, to kind of make their own decisions sometimes, which is easier said than done sometimes as a parent, but it's definitely something that I'm kind of learning a little bit more as mine get older. So.
Yeah. And I think too, another thing, like, I don't have kids, right? I have a husband, but he doesn't eat like me. He eats pizza and wings and sushi. He does nothing. Like, food to him is just food, which, coming from me, like, sometimes that's envious, right? Like, I look at him and I'm like, man, I just want to have pizza, like, but it's that breaking that, like, that fear down, like breaking the mold of, like, it's okay to have something that's not. But the funny part is, it's like, I hear myself telling my clients, like, they're like, oh, I had a piece of pizza last night. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, it fits in your day. You had a slice, move on. You're great. And then on the back end, I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. Like, it's so, like, double-sided, but everybody has their own little, like, journey, Mine just happens to be, like, right now, that is, like, food is just a touchy subject, and it's been since, like, this is going on, 14 years now? Like, this isn't like a last week thing, like, this is a long time. But I think when you tap into, like, breaking down that small barrier, like, you ate those things and you didn't die, and you might have had some anxiety over it, but you made it through and nothing happened. It's the same thing with me. Like, every day you try something a little bit different, and you start breaking down that barrier slowly and slowly. But
absolutely. How'd you like those waffles this morning?
They were awesome. Like, I mean, they were gluten-free Vans waffles, right? I went on an 8-mile run this morning with my husband because we're training for a half marathon in December. So I was, like, dreaming of these waffles. I'm running and, like, dreaming of them. And I was like, I come home and I'm like, I just want waffles with peanut butter and some bananas. And he's like, so eat it. And I was, like, contemplating it. Like, he saw the contemplation. And I was like, okay. And then once I ate it, I was like, wow, that was really good. you know? So it's like, it's just that fear of, like, it's a waffle. Like, God forbid, like, what's wrong with the waffle?
I haven't had a waffle in a while, actually.
Yeah. So, like, that's
buckwheat pancakes this morning, though.
Yes. See, like, you have to break out of it. But you're right. It's a mindset. Like, people don't get it that it's an actual problem. People just think that I'm super healthy, right? They're like, you're just super health conscious. You're a personal trainer. You're a nutrition coach. You just eat healthy. You live the lifestyle. Yeah, but there's that thing called balance. And while some people have balance in other areas of their life that's off, like, that's one area that's way off in my life. Like, that over exercising, over analyzing food, where you can't find that balance in between. Yeah. I'm sure this is the same for you. You feel the same way.
It's definitely something that has ebbed and flowed a lot over the past few years, and sometimes has been worse. I think I'm in a different place because, well, actually, funnily enough, it was getting to a point where I was delving out into more fun foods, or what I call them, right?
Yeah.
Because when I started working with my coach and I was at the top of my reverse diet and I was eating to perform, which was awesome. And then I was like, oh man, I can have like all kinds of stuff that I couldn't have earlier and all that stuff. And then all of the issues with the hormones started coming up. Now, as a result of that, I've had to cut out a lot of things just to kind of work on some gut health issues. And it's kind of perpetuating that thing in a different direction.
Yeah.
But I have those same feelings now too, that I've had to cut out dairy and cut out gluten and cut out all these other things. And it's kind of just like, can't I just, I'm a person and just eat whatever I want?
Right. And I think I should probably say this too, like I do have an autoimmune condition. So I already have celiac, which is a gluten allergy. So that already cuts like a huge part of the food group out. Like, right. Like I can't have a lot of things to begin with. So that already like makes my spectrum like small. And then you hear all of these things, like I'm sure you listen to a ton of podcasts, right? Like keto is in style. Then it's like, no, go high carb. And you hear all this stuff and you're like, but what's right? You know, like what should I do? So then you go like the keto route, but then they're like, no, you shouldn't have like animal fat. It should just be like plant-based fats and like fats from like avocado. And then you're like cutting out everything. And now you're just stuck with meat and vegetables. Like,
and that's not fun.
Life? Right. Like, what is your life then? So I think too, a good thing that we should note is like all of these like diets that have like labels like paleo and keto, like that just puts people into this box. And like, that's where issues happen, right? Like you start putting yourself into, I'm paleo. And then it's like, all of a sudden you're like, no, well now keto is like almost like the hybrid of paleo. So I'm going to go keto. And then you have nothing. And then you're stuck. Because then what do you do?
You're going to have like 3 pieces of asparagus a day.
Right. And that's where people get into trouble, right? So like that's where I think it takes it to that next level of like too much of a good thing is just too much, you know? Like you can only eat healthy, but you can't overdo it. So I think that's something that people get in their heads, like when they eat healthy, they have to like cut out life. And you really don't. There's a lot of successful people that eat, you know, cookies and cake and they're fine, you know?
Exactly. I eat some today. And that's the thing too. And people will also get into that other spiral of like, okay, so I made this gluten-free, dairy-free, organic cake with all these awesome ingredients. But at the end of the day, it's still cake and it still has fat on top of it. Like I can still overeat that even though it's healthy cake.
Absolutely.
I can't just go into my kitchen and keep putting my fork in it and keep eating.
Yeah. And you're right. Like bringing that point up, like even though it's healthy, doesn't mean you can eat it in unlimited quantities too. Like
exactly.
I have the same problem. Like I'm sure you have foods that you cannot keep in your house, right? Like trigger foods, kind of like foods that if you have in your house, it's gone in a day. You know what I mean? Like mine Nutella. Is trail mix. Oh, Nutella. Mine's trail mix. Like any kind of nuts. Forget it. Like I tell my husband, do not buy any mixed nuts that come in a big bag because they're gone. I can't control myself. Like it's just too hard. But yeah, I think that's
crazy good though.
Oh my God, it is. But it's like if you actually measure out a portion, it's like
sad.
A pineapple chunk.
Yeah, it really is sad. You're like, well, that's not enough.
Yeah. So,
question.
Sure.
What types of thoughts enter your mind? Like because you said now a lot of your friends like don't even bother to ask you to like go out. But like when it was first starting to get bad and people would ask you to go out to eat, or if you were going to be going to a party or something and you knew food would be there, like what kinds of thoughts would just kind of jump into your head and that would start to spiral out of control?
Yeah. So like for me, I'm 100% in all or nothing, right? It's either I'm abstaining or I'm binging. And then that's where like the whole like binge eating and then anorexia comes into play. Because it's like both devils, like one on each shoulder, right? So it's either I would go to a party, not eat at all, or I'd go to the party and have the F it mentality and just be like, oh, I'm eating it all because if I'm here, I might as well indulge. And that's where that is like a wave, you know? So 90% of the time, I probably just wouldn't eat just because it kept me in a better mind space, I guess. Like I'd eat before I go, eat when I come home type of thing. But there's times before, like years ago, not anytime like recently, but where binge eating was a real big issue in my life. And I would just go off the rails. And that's like where things mentally, you know, were harder because I didn't have that control or restraint. It was like, I'm just going to go out and just whatever, you know, have the YOLO effect. I don't want the YOLO effect.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now, because obviously some time has passed since feelings were that significant, when something like that comes up now, what types of thoughts enter your head that are they still the same or are they now?
Yeah. So like, for instance, I mean, this is a real life application. I just talked to you before, like, Eric's graduating from his, you know, class on Thursday and we have a dinner, like it's a huge dinner. So I'm obligated to be there. So obviously like my first reaction, he's like, oh, we're having a dinner at whatever place. I kind of get the, oh, great. Like what's going to be there, you know? And then I pull out the, well, I'm gluten free. So then I get to pull out that card. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, well, make sure it's just chicken and some vegetables, you know, nothing else with it. And then I guarantee you I'll pick around a little bit and that's it. And then like I'll have a normal meal at home. Because to me, there's something about still eating out in front of people that like when you are distracted, that's when that binge mentality starts creeping in for me personally. Like that's what happened. So like my attitude towards it is like I try to control as much as I can control and then just let the rest be. Like enjoy the moment, enjoy the time with him, and that's that. You know? I have to say though too, like he's super supportive about the whole situation, so he doesn't make it a big deal either. And I think that's part of it. Like a lot of people don't have the support from people around them when they're struggling with stuff like this. My husband's totally aware. So he knows that like if they come with like a plate of mashed potatoes, he automatically like will scoop them on his. You know, like he will not even hesitate. He'll just right off the plate. Like he doesn't even think.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, so like he tries to like diffuse the situation so I don't have to struggle as much, but then it's like I still have to take ownership over how I feel. So, you know, and that's why I want like to bring awareness. I'm glad we had this conversation about it, because a lot of people don't realize that they're struggling that hardcore until somebody else points it out. You know, until somebody else is like, why are you not eating, you know, the pizza with everybody at the party, or why aren't you doing this? And, you know, that's when that hard conversation has to come into play.
Yeah, I agree completely.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you do have that kind of support system in your life too, where it enables you to be automatically less stressed because you know that the person is there kind of not going through it with you, but is there as someone like an aid to lean on.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I had one other question. How, so in terms of, obviously we talked a little bit about this and kind of how you deal with like things on a day-to-day basis and your in control of the food that you bring into your house and things of that nature. And you said, I think, that you were trying to kind of delve out and try one new thing every day, or one new thing like every week?
Like, I'll probably get like some different things weekly because we just go grocery shopping weekly, so I don't go out of my way, you know, to try to like find something new. But like I said, like I try to be very cautious with what I'm eating, kind of like, and when I'm saying like go slowly, it's almost like coconut flakes on top of something. You know what I mean? Like something that's still healthy, but not in the realm of what I would be like, oh, it's a health food kind of thing. So I try to like sprinkle in things here and there. And, you know, sometimes it works and sometimes it backfires where I just have a meltdown. Like it's funny, I bought Pop-Tarts, like gluten-free Pop-Tarts, like a while back. and not one of them are eaten yet. Like I wanted them, not one of them is eaten. And I know exactly why. It's because they come in a pack of 2 and I didn't want to eat just one. You know, it's that mindset, like when you look at the ingredients kind of thing. So it's a hard concept too to try to teach people, especially when you know in the back of your head, like it sounds right when you're talking to someone, like it's okay to have balance. It's okay to have that cupcake. It's okay to have the Reese's peanut butter cup. And then you struggle on the back end, you know, like then you know your own back end issues. But I think it's important too, like we're all human. That's why we have coaches, you know, that's why we reach out for help, because as much as we can help others, we need to help ourselves too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that. So going back to the gluten-free Pop-Tart, and it's in a pack of 2, have you thought about you and Eric splitting the package?
And like him, you want me, you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we can do that. It's just, I don't know. There's something about Pop-Tarts and then just knowing like the connotation with the Pop-Tart, like normal Pop-Tart. You know what I mean? Like it's like, same thing with like ice cream. Ice cream is another one of those, like, it's iffy. Like it has to be very controlled. It has to be very contained. I can't have it like in the house, like freely open, because it's one of those things where when I was dealing with a lot of my issues, that was one of the foods I'd gravitate towards. You know, like I would gravitate towards ice cream, not think, just spoon in mouth, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And you're like, well, that was bad, you know.
Oops.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's just when you grow up and you have some like issues with food, what's good and bad, you know, you start making these lines, you know, these big lines in the sand, like this is good, this isn't good. You know, this is a vegetable, this isn't. And for a long time, even fruit was a hard thing for me, believe it or not. Like eating fruit, because we went through that whole little era. I mean, I guess I should say this too. I did do a bodybuilding show. So when you're a raw bodybuilder, you know, fruit's off limits, God forbid, fructose make you fat. So they're like, no fruit. And when you start dealing with life again, you're like, well, fruit was bad for that. Why isn't fruit bad for this kind of thing? So I have to say, like, the things that I involved myself in were definitely a contributing factor to my mindset towards food. I mean, between like bodybuilding took a whole new level. Like that was like the whole new level of extreme, because when I did shows, there was no flexible dieting. Like that wasn't a thing yet. Like it was still like bro diet, like chicken, asparagus, and rice for like 12 weeks. Like that's all we ate. Yeah. So I think that played a large part into it too, because you were so strict and rigid. That when you bounced into real life again, they're like, well, don't gain the 30 pounds after the show, you know?
Yeah, and that's really difficult.
Yeah. Really, especially when you've already had issues prior, you know? So, like, that's another thing, too. That's a whole different topic we can talk about.
Next show.
Yeah, right?
All right. Yeah, I mean, that's all I had, really. I mean, do you have any questions or topics that you want to delve into a little bit more that kind of align with the conversation? Obsessing over healthy foods?
I think part of it is how can we educate others about the importance of having balance without crossing the line of what is too much. You know, like we always preach like nutrient density and you want to have those healthy foods, but how do you also teach the fine line balance between you could enjoy that slice of pizza, you know, and be okay, because you don't want people to create these big divides of what's good, what's bad, what you should have, what you shouldn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes down to challenging them when you do realize that they've drawn that line in the sand.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with a few clients who have. And I just ask them why. And then normally you'll get back this kind of like, well, I don't know. I thought that's how it should be.
Right.
So then we have the ability to say, well, that is one way it could be, but what if it could also be this way? And kind of reframe that thinking for them and say, well, I mean, hey, if you wanted to enjoy that donut, or if you wanted to have, that piece of your daughter's birthday cake or whatnot, how could you make that fit and enjoy it and then just let it go?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's all about challenging the way that they're thinking and helping them reframe those thoughts into the situation.
Yeah, I love that. Challenge. That's the hard part. That is very, very hard. I mean, I know, and like you got challenged today, like with those soy whatever things that were on that cake.
Yeah. They weren't bad. They didn't taste bad either. They kind of melt in your mouth a little bit, but.
Yeah. But it's funny when you draw those lines, right? Like you automatically look at it and you're like, no, soy, gone. Like you don't even think twice. And, I think it's funny too, like you're raising your kids to become aware, which is great. Awareness is awesome because most people aren't even aware of what they're putting in their mouth, let alone like that your kids know the difference between like a soy product and not, right? Like that's amazing because you ask anybody else, they wouldn't know that. But like, I think it too is just finding, your family balance with food too. Because does your husband eat as healthy as you?
He comes and goes. I mean, obviously, like I'm the grocery shopper.
Right.
And so he eats what is in the house. He kind of goes in and out of periods of, tracking his food more so because his thing is that he just will get busy and he won't eat.
Yeah.
Not one of those people where he doesn't live to eat. He literally eats to live. And for him to actually get the amount of food in a day that he needs to get in takes him a lot of effort. The poor thing, I think it takes 30 minutes to eat every meal to kind of get it all in. I can attest to the fact actually that he does not feel very well today because he did not eat very well yesterday. Well, Donovan wanted, she wanted fried chicken for her birthday dinner on Friday night. And she had not been feeling well most of Friday. And so we kind of let her decide what she wanted to eat. And so she said, originally she said lasagna. And then she reneged on that and wanted fried chicken and mashed potatoes. And I was like, well, it's your birthday, honey. You can have whatever you want to. And we usually always get our fried chicken from Publix. And I don't know if you've ever had fried chicken from Publix.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. It is so good. So good.
Yeah.
Well, of course, he gets to Publix and they're completely out. And it's going to take like 40 minutes for them to do a new batch. And I'm like, we don't have time for that. So he went to Bojangles. And he got fried chicken and mashed potatoes and biscuits and stuff. And so that's what we had for her birthday dinner. But we had soccer first thing yesterday morning. And so his breakfast yesterday morning was leftover Bojangles with biscuits and honey. Like straight up Southern, like you could never imagine. And so then I remember seeing him eating some of her leftover number 8 pancakes for lunch. No protein in sight whatsoever. And then for dinner, he decided, okay, so we used to go like way back in the day to this place called Johnny's Pizza. Mm-hmm. And they would make these mozzarella pretzels.
Oh.
And they were the most incredible things. One of the contributing factors of how I ended up at one point at 208 pounds. But they were so good. And so somehow this Johnny's mozzarella pretzel got into his head yesterday when we were at the grocery store looking for the cake stuff for Donovan. And so he was like, I've got to make those pretzels. So he calls up the local pizza place and has them sell him dough.
Oh.
Yes. And so then he gets a whole bunch of mozzarella cheese and some Parmesan cheese. And of course, it's organic mozzarella cheese and it's organic Parmesan cheese and it's organic butter. But it's on Partner's Pizza dough, which is actually the best thing that ever was invented, really. And he makes this giant pretzel that he ends up putting some of the turkey spaghetti sauce that I'd made earlier in the week with. And so that was like his whole day was a whole bunch of just trash food. Not
Right.
a site, hardly any protein. Sorry, I take that back. There was tomatoes and tomato sauce. But it was bad. And his stomach has been upset all day today.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, I haven't eaten like that in a while. And I'm like, well, now you know why that you shouldn't eat like that. But
Right.
he's definitely not he's health conscious for sure. And of course, most of that he learned by watching me. But he definitely doesn't take it to the same level as I do.
Yeah.
He's all for being on the gluten-free train with me just because he's trying to be supportive, and he's all for, like, he's switched over to goat's milk with us when we went to goat's milk and got off of conventional milk and, you know, all those kinds of things. And so he's on board, and he normally eats quite well. Just not yesterday.
Yeah. And I think that's important, like, for people to know too, like, just because like we have issues with food, you know, like your counterpart doesn't have to have those issues too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know? Like, a lot of people, like, even when they think that my house is filled with like just organic everything, and I'm like, nah, like, let me take a picture of my pantry and show you. Like, Eric hid Halloween candy because he knew that he wouldn't get it ever again because I don't let it in the house. So he has a bucket of Halloween candy for himself in the closet because that's what he wants. But, you know, I'm not going to tell him what to eat. This is my deal, not his. But
he's a big boy. He can handle it.
Yeah, it's important, you know, and as much as I preach about health and nutrition, like, he doesn't follow it. He doesn't count macros. He doesn't follow a diet. He just eats what he wants, and that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will tell you too that Nathan has been very, very conscious of his nutrient density today. So he was drinking a green smoothie earlier. Yeah. So he's definitely making up for it today, eating healthier stuff, but I think it's all in an effort to make his stomach not hurt.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can do that too, right? Like that's something that I was talking to my own coach about a couple of weeks ago, in that when we went out and ate for my birthday, you know, I knew exactly what I was going to be getting and looking into. And yes, I had some vegetables, but I didn't eat nearly the vegetables that I would normally eat on a day. But then, like, what do you do in those situations, right? Like when you go out and you don't eat what you normally eat and all of that kind of stuff, you can make a conscious effort the next day to make sure that your nutrient density is on point and make sure that you are getting more fiber and more vitamins and minerals in your food to kind of like help your body balance out.
Right.
The more, you know, loose day the day before, but then not beating yourself up over that either.
Right. Yeah, it's
where we start to get into the issue.
Yeah, and I think I've had conversations with like clients about nutrition because they feel like traveling's a big one. You know, they're like, I'm traveling, I'm not gonna meet my macros today. And I'm like, why? You're not eating it all today? Like, you're not putting food in your mouth? They're like, well, I'm traveling. And I'm like, I'll give you a list of things and places you can go and you can still meet all of your macros. And I think people forget that. It's like they want to give themselves the fastest way out, you know, of meeting their goals if one thing is a non-controlled factor, you know. So, but maybe we can talk about that on a different different episode of this.
Yeah, that would be a great one, how to navigate travel. Yeah. Totally do that.
Like a traveling one, but I'm hoping we get some good questions off of this one from people.
I think so too. Yeah. So if you guys have questions for us, make sure that you comment below and let us know what they are, and we will let you know what we think the answers are, or what we would suggest the answer to be too. So I think that was actually a good wrapping up place. You did that perfectly.
Yeah, that's good.
Way to go. So I think we are going to wrap it up here because it's getting late and it's almost bedtime here for us, and kids have school tomorrow and all that kind of thing. But thanks so much for talking to me about all of this cool stuff. And yeah, I do think that we should kind of probably do this a little bit more often. This was fun.
So, yeah, it's good. I think this is good, and especially if we get some good topics. So I hope that you guys leave us some good, you know, topics. If you want to learn something, let us know, and we can pop on here and do some stuff, do some Q&As, and answer the questions that you have.
Oh yeah, next time live Q&A. That'd be so much fun.
Yeah.
All right, well, great. Let us go from there. We hope you guys have a great rest of the night.